Hi Marvel Legends. Full disclosure, I don't think I like this video. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I might have been looking at it for too long. Basically, it was all filmed and recorded and edited in one day. And it's a storytime one. I display model behavior with models telling the story of one of my favorite modern Spider-Man tales. Problem was, I didn't reread it before doing so. And because of that, I think that I and my way through a lot of it, jumping back and forth in the narrative, and I don't know, it's just not one of my stronger efforts. So I wasn't gonna post it after doing all this editing. I was like, no, you know what? A person is only as good as their last performance, and this might be the first time someone sees model behavior, and they'll be like, this guy sucks. But then I thought to myself, a lot of people have actually said, I really enjoy waking up and finding a new video from you. So I don't want to stop that, even if it's not one of my absolute best efforts. So take this for what it's worth, and I hope you enjoy model behavior. Hello Marvel Legends, welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behavior, and we are gonna go old school. I'm gonna do what this channel, this YouTube show was originally created to do, which is display model behavior. And it's very appropriate that I've got a little animal with me, because we are going to model one of my favorite recent Spider-Man arcs. We are going to model Hunted. So I'm going to talk you through the story of Hunted from what I can recall from my concussion-addled noggin, and I'm going to show you the various characters, and we're going to position them in a little Hunted tableau, a diorama, if you will. So I'm actually going to try and tone down my delivery, because we're going to have a little story time, basically. And our story begins, as all Spider-Man stories do, which is not actually true, but still, with Spider-Man himself, Peter Parker. I need to get a camera that will change focus when I move things towards it, because I know that it always focuses on me, and then when I move a character you get blurro vision, but we'll get there in time. Maybe if I start a Patreon and get some money from this, then I'll invest in better equipment. But I think we're a long way off from that. So of course it's all based around Peter Parker. What is the great story, the great rivalry that's going to be addressed and possibly put to bed for one final time? Peter Parker and Kraven the Hunter. Yep, this is basically a spiritual sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt. So that was, the first sort of chapter. It was the beginning of the end, I feel. A lot of people thought Kraven's Last Hunt was the end of Kraven until it wasn't. As things so often are in comics, Kraven was resurrected. And it was a reluctant resurrection. That was the cool thing. He was brought back by his family and he was like, I don't want to be here. And he was kind of cursed because he could only die at the hands of Spider-Man. So it was only the spider that could kill him. So he wants to get Spider-Man to kill him. What's the one thing Spider-Man's not going to do? Kill people. So it's kind of a catch-22. So Kraven concocts this plan along with his surviving heir, Kraven Jr. here. I know the Marvel Legend, I think, is just modern Kraven, but it's a point of the story and the lineage that they look pretty much identical. So we have Kraven and his son, who is not called Kraven Jr. I forget what his actual name is, but we'll get to how identical they are at the end of the story. So what happens is Kraven has this master plan to basically force Spider-Man's hand, and it involves hiring a couple of mercenaries, a couple of mercs who are new to my collection. And I'm very happy to add to this display now. Finally, we have Taskmaster and Black Ant. Now, these two guys begin to round up animal-themed villains, and it's like, what's happening here? What's the big goal? What's the end game? And one of the huge, main perpetrators we first get is Rhino. And this is an interesting little story, little sort of story arc, story beat, where Spider-Man, as always, he's always torn in different directions. He's doing one thing, trying to help other people. I think he's on his way to Aunt May. Maybe that's always a classic. But either way, he sees Rhino being attacked by Taskmaster and Black Ant. And he's like, Rhino's kind of a villain, but I need to save him, but at the same time, I can't, I've got to go. And he makes that fateful decision to be like, I'm sorry, I want to help Rhino, but I gotta do this other thing. So Rhino gets captured by Taskmaster and Black Ant. Now then, plans are starting to form and circulate because other animal-themed villains are also being captured, and we realise that Kraven is assembling a whole menagerie, basically. The crown jewel of which turns out to be Kurt Connors, the lethal lizard. So Connors has been kidnapped, and also, more importantly, Connor's son has been kidnapped. And this is an interesting sort of story because the entire lizard story is very kind of messed up in that he went super feral and kind of became just like a lizard-brained monster, and I believe he ate his son? Yeah. And then in the clone conspiracy, he used Ben Reilly's cloning sort of technology to bring his family back, but they were kind of brought back as lizard people. So his son is back, but he's kind of like a mutant. He's a lizard boy, basically. So Kraven kidnaps him to use him to act as a pawn and a bargaining chip so he can manipulate the lizard. And of course, being the philanthropist that she is, Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, is enlisted by Spider-Man with a nice little handcuff accessory I threw on there to try and rescue Kurt Connors' son. Is it Billy? I think it might be Billy. So Billy Connors is being held by the Kravens, and Black Cat is on her way to rescue him. Now then, let's see if we can organise. You see, this is why we got to organise, because we got big sticky out tails and characters all over the place. So we need to get a little more semblance of order and some style here. So let's see what we can do. All right, we've got some semblance of order here, but I'm having to peek around these two big lugs. So I tell you what, let me just move Rhino over to the side a little bit so that you can see me a bit more clearly. Now then, we have some of the main characters assembled here. And after a lot of build-up, what eventually happens is Kraven, as he's very skilled in doing, manages to kidnap Spidey himself. So Spidey gets knocked out, and when he wakes up, he is in the black costume. As I said, this is very much a sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt. So it makes sense that Kraven would want to dress Spider-Man in the attire that he wore in what he felt was their final confrontation, the ending of their story. And what's beautiful is that the writing and the art directly mirrors and recreates images and pages and panels from the original Kraven's Last Hunt. So it really does act as a sequel to that story. So Spider-Man wakes up and finds out that what has happened is that Kraven has enlisted the help of Arcade, who's a character that hasn't got a Marvel Legend yet, I don't think, and that would be a fun one to add to the collection. So what Arcade has done is encased, I want to say Central Park. There you go. My brain was thinking Times Square, but I knew that wasn't right. Of course, it's Central Park, which is great because you have that whole sort of forest, wild kind of environment. Central Park is encased in a force field, and all of these animal-themed villains have been rounded up. So this is where it gets really fun. We have the whole menagerie of the Marvel Universe. If there is a character who is an animal hybrid, has an animal theme, has some sort of costuming or gimmick going, then they have been rounded up and placed in this zoo, essentially. Or, more to the point, this game reserve. Because that's what it seems Kraven has done. Kraven has gone out and found all of the world's hunters. Not like cool Kraven, pride and honor type hunters. No, we're talking rich scumbags. Like the lowest of the low. I mean, really, is there anything lower than trophy hunters? Like people who actually just get off on killing endangered animals? Like that actually is like the worst of the worst. I could probably list worse people actually, but I wouldn't make a very fun video podcast. So here we go, throw in King Cobra as well. That was my initial start to the Serpent Society, was seeing King Cobra appear in this, and I was like, oh, I could justify getting this. So we have an entire zoo's worth of animal-themed characters. And what Kraven has done is he's invited all of these hunters to come to his mansion, wherever he's based, and it gets a bit Matrixy. He says, like, look, you want to hunt the deadliest animals in the world, which are, of course, all of these animal-themed supervillains. So you want to do it from comfort. So he gives them all virtual reality headsets. Of course, Arcade is the master of virtual reality, which allows them to, from the comfort of their mansion, to project and control these androids in Central Park, and the androids can then hunt the animal-themed villains. So Spider-Man wakes up in the park, he's surrounded by all of his enemies, and initially, of course, they just try to attack him because he's Spider-Man. He's like, whoa, I got no idea what's going on here. In the meantime, Felicia Hardy is trying to rescue the lizard's son and the lizard himself. She gets captured, it's a whole thing, and eventually everything just goes crazy because you've got all of these hunter androids trying to capture and kill these animal-themed villains, and they're actually doing really well because these androids are like super killer. So even though these guys, there are some heavy hitters in here, they're actually no match for these hunters in their android suits. And Spider-Man's like, I gotta put a stop to this, but how? And Kraven's like, you know how you're going to put a stop to this. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to kill you. So eventually it's fight. And we have a really great character moment with the Vulture, Adrian Toomes. And I love it that actually some writers will do this. They will not just take the name Vulture, but they'll actually give him sort of vulture, predatory, scavenger type qualities. Because what he does is he acts as the big, rousing motivator for the villains. He's like, you've all got to get behind me. I will lead you to victory. I'll lead you to safety. Follow my lead. And together we're going to survive this. And they're all like, yeah, we'll be with you, Vulture. And then he sort of reveals in secret that he doesn't really care about any of that. He's just using these guys as a decoy so that he can escape. And it's like, oh, that's brilliant. Just like vulture tendencies. So clever. I'm sure there are some vultures watching this going, that's really unfair stereotyping. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention that's really cool. I love these ensemble type stories because you see so many little flashes of characters. We had Lady Octopus, Carolyn Traynor, for like one panel, who's a Clone Saga deep cut. The daughter of Seward Traynor, I know who, but she filled in for Dr. Octopus when he was temporarily dead. So it was great to just see her and mark out for her. Also, speaking of marking out, I was really pleased to see the White Rabbit featured quite prominently. Let me see if I can reach and rescue. Oh, Timber, hold that thought. Right, where were we? One thing I've learned from this video already is that this is a terrible format. It's virtually impossible to build a display from behind like this, but we've started now, so we're gonna finish. Where was I? Marking out, that's right. I marked out for the inclusion of the White Rabbit. I'm a huge Lewis Carroll fan. I love any characters kind of based off of that. Who played Alice the Madness, the American McGee PC game in the early 2000s? Oh, so good. Anyway, the White Rabbit features quite a lot in this, and she's had a few really good appearances recently. During the Absolute Carnage storyline, there was a flashback issue where there was a whole storyline about her having this confrontation with a guy who is a judge. He was a witness to an incident with her assaulting like a coffee shop manager, which is an interesting thing because they're supervillains, but it doesn't mean they're just supervillains. They also go to coffee shops and they're violent, unpredictable people there as well. So she assaults this coffee shop manager and the guy witnesses it, and he's also the judge in her trial. So when he convicts her, she breaks out, obviously, and she goes to his house and his son is there with him, and she pulls a gun and she's like, you could have, got me off, but you didn't. And she pulls the trigger and just a Joker style flag with bang comes out and she's like, gotcha. And then the judge's son dies of a heart attack and she's like, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. And it's a wonderfully tragic kind of thing where it's like, this character is so wacky and goofy, like, didn't mean to be a villain that badly, but that's what happens when you screw around with people. And it's a tragic story, because then what happens is she goes on trial again for, accidental manslaughter or whatever. And the judge, whose son died, tries to pull out a gun and shoot her. He gets tackled and he accidentally shoots one of the people in the courtroom. And she's like, ha ha, that's ironic. So, it's a real sort of tragic, awful, sad story. But yeah, I digress. Either way, it was a cool White Rabbit appearance. We're getting to the end of the story now, but just one more quick fun thing was, of course, we have, as I've mentioned in previous reviews, the dynamic between Taskmaster and Black Ant was really, really fun. That they're mercenaries who are friends, but they'll totally dick each other over. So Black Ant comments to Taskmaster we're going to get a big bonus for rounding up all the animal-themed villains in New York. And Tasky's like, well, we haven't rounded up all of them. And then he zaps Black Ant and he's like, sorry, business is business. I want that beachfront property. So that was a fun little nod. But then at the end, because there's so much to go over, but ultimately, Spider-Man is having these visions, because Kraven's drugged him, as he so often likes to do. Spidey is having these visions of Mary Jane being murdered. So Kraven is basically trying to convince him that if he doesn't kill Kraven, Kraven's going to kill Mary Jane. And they have this final sort of confrontation together. In the meantime, the Black Cat has managed to free not only Billy Connors, but also the Lizard as well. So the Lizard is on a rampage, and he's wrecking shop. And this kind of makes the Lizard a bit of an A-lister as well. He always sort of is. He's just a savage. He's like a big bad. Where he's never written as a punk. Basically, the Lizard's always written as a huge threat. He has a huge throwdown with Kraven's son. They're battling it out, and eventually Spider-Man and Kraven have their face-to-face. Kraven's like, "You don't kill me, I'm gonna kill Mary Jane." Simple as that. Ultimately, though, Spider-Man doesn't kill him. He's like, "You can't force me to do that. I know what dreams and illusions are. I'm not going to play your game. You've lost." At which point, a light bulb goes off in Kraven's head. And he's like, I know what to do now. So he basically pieces out. He's like, Spider-Man, go be with Mary Jane. We're done here. Sorry, there's no big finish for us. I know what to do. And Spidey's exhausted. He's like, I need to round you up, but I gotta go to be with Mary Jane. So he leaves. And we kind of get a really interesting sort of ending to the story where it's kind of shown in little segments. You don't quite piece together what's happening. Kraven, in a mirror image to Kraven's last hunt, goes back to the room in his mansion where the coffin is. First of all, he contacts Arcade, and he's like, Arcade, release the force field over Central Park, let everyone go. Also, I didn't mention, Kraven tricked the hunters. He didn't tell them that any damage the androids sustain will be inflicted mentally upon them. So that was a nice little FU to all those trophy hunters. So when the villains actually started fighting back, the hunters who were controlling the androids got what was coming to them. So that was very satisfying. Anyway, Kraven goes back to the coffin where he originally took his own life, and you see him pick up something from the coffin, and you're like, oh god, is he going to kill himself again? I thought he could only die, only the spider can kill Kraven. That was the words, only the spider can kill Kraven. And then we see Spider-Man in his black costume swinging away from Central Park, and he is attacked by Kraven's son. Kraven's son is like, you're not getting away, this ends now. I'm gonna, fulfill my father's destiny, his legacy. And he attacks Spider-Man, and he's pummeling him and just bludgeoning him. And Spider-Man's not really fighting back that much. And then what we finally see, Kraven's son, with his hands around Spider-Man's neck, chokes the life out of him until he dies in his hands. And then finally, in the wonderfully kind of tragic but satisfying ending, with Spider-Man dead at his hands, the son of Kraven looks up and sees Spider-Man swinging away from Central Park. And then he looks down and he pulls the mask off of the body, and it's his father, Kraven. Kraven dressed as Spider-Man, knowing that his son would kill him, and therefore the prophecy was completed that the spider killed Kraven. By being the spider, he was able to be killed by its hands. You know, it's such a creative way of getting around this ending, and it's a wonderfully tragic but sort of fulfilling wrap up to this epic story. I think it's a really worthy sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt. And at the very end, Kraven's son is like, I am going to fulfill my father's legacy. I will take over from him. He cuts his hair, he shaves his beard, he takes on the identical identity of his father, because there will always be a Kraven the Hunter, and as long as there is, there will always be awesome Spider-Man stories featuring these characters. Whew! Folks, that was epic. That was fun. I hope you enjoyed story time. I was kind of winging it. I think I got a lot of things wrong, but I got a lot of things right as well. And this, what a display. I am very, very pleased with this. If you were pleased with this, then guys, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And actually, yeah, do click like as well, because I think that's really helpful. I'm learning more about YouTube as we go. I feel quite ridiculous with my head just framed here. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next episode. And until then, keep displaying model behavior. This is the Big Boss Man, and if you believe in law, order, and justice, then you need to like, share, and subscribe to Model Behavior.